Hey everyone, welcome to our live stream. Unfortunately, this is pre-recorded. Had a last minute thing come up, so we weren't able to actually live stream, but we're using the Premiere feature for YouTube so that this will kind of play out kind of like a live stream. The chat will be live while this is premiering, so we'll be watching and interacting with you guys as you watch this video. So definitely post comments. We'd be happy to kind of chat back and forth about some of the concepts that we're discussing here today. So my name is Vase. I run the Left for the Vultures YouTube channel. I'm also the lead designer for the Left for the Vultures tabletop role-playing game launching on Kickstarter in less than a month, August 11th.
August 11th. And I'm Gio,
And with me
Headless
today-
Hammerhead from the Headless Hammerhead YouTube channel.
Very nice, very nice. And today we're going to be talking about one very interesting topic. It's a design decision topic. Basically, the design for Left for the Vultures went through many iterations, and we tried a bunch of different mechanics that we thought would be interesting, and then those were modified along the way. One of those mechanics is the way that damage is handled in the game, specifically for attacks and magic spells and things like that. We wanted to make it dynamic, we wanted to make it unpredictable, and we wanted to have really high highs and really low lows because that creates excitement at the table. If you sanitize a dice roll where it's too average, or just within a very small kind of range, it tends to not be as exciting. So if you do 4 damage or you do 6 damage, that's meh. But if you're doing 3 damage or you get a lucky roll and do 14 damage, now we're talking a huge range of damage that can really bring a lot of excitement to the table. So we're going to be discussing the design decisions for Left for the Vultures damage system and combat system. And we're going to be talking about some other games that we've played and we've read into and how they use some other damage concepts that don't involve an attack roll and a damage roll. So this will be a fun and exciting discussion and will lead kind of into why we made the decisions that we made for the game.
Yeah. And there are many different ways to handle damage in role-playing games. A lot. I think everything has been tested out pretty much that could be created has been. Well, anytime anybody says that, somebody somehow comes up with something completely new and fresh. But yeah, it's certain systems have huge flaws, and we'll get into some of those in how they handle damage. And I think that with Left for the Vultures, what you came up with in the end really mitigates a lot of those things, a lot of the negative aspects of it. But we'll get into everything, how it works and everything.
Yeah, so let's start with some of the other games and how they went about doing their damage and combat, specifically with attack and damage rolls. So one of the first ones that I mentioned in the article that for our newsletter, if you guys aren't signed up, sign up for our newsletter. There'll be a link below. But we send an article every week and we talk about different things, tabletop role playing, gaming tips and GM tips and things like that. But there is a game system called Into the Odd. There's a lot of games that use the Into the Odd mechanics, but that's like the main system. But there's a couple of subsystems like Mouse Ritter. It's a game about mice, kind of like a fantasy game with mice in it. And then there's Carn, Cairn. Carn is also a very popular kind of OSR darling in a way that uses the Into the Odd mechanics. All of those kind of the way that they work is they mitigated the attack roll completely. Basically, you roll damage, so you swing your weapon to attack, and the representation of that is not an attack roll. Instead, it's just a straight up damage roll, which is then contested against the defendant's armor rating. So they have an armor system where an armor gives you X amount of defense points. And then if your damage goes over that, then the person takes the damage from the attack roll.
Yeah, so it's a simple math, simple division problem when you're dealing damage. And once you are fighting an enemy with your character, then basically it's the same every round. There's no surprises. Everything is pretty easy to help the game move along, the combat move along very, very quickly, because the first round you do the calculation. After that, it's pretty much just straightforward.
So what's cool about the combat system in these games is that it runs really fast. And also combat is a very important decision because you go into combat, you're going to take some damage. I mean, there's no mitigation because every attack hits, they're just rolling damage against your armor. So if it goes over your armor rating, you're taking damage. So it's a very, very important decision. And it makes people try to come up with different ways to resolve combat. And it also forces players to not just do what people do in 5th edition D&D. They're very common, like, I hit, they hit me. I swing, they swing, I swing, they swing. Back and forth, just everyone pounding at each other, and it's attrition-based.
The video game combat, basically, yeah.
Yeah, whoever can do the most damage and take the most hits wins the combat no matter what. But in a game like this, where it's very, very dynamic, so you can go down if someone rolls lucky, and that is a concern. So you have to be more intelligent with how you handle your combat. You can't just go in and start trading blows with someone, because everyone's taking damage at that point, and it's just a matter. This attrition game that people play in 5th edition doesn't really work as well in this kind of game. You want to be a little bit more intelligent and fight unfair. So wherever you can gain an advantage, you want to take advantage of those advantages. Take advantage of advantage, So I thought their system was pretty cool. I mean, there's other games that do something similar, but that's one of the more famous ones, that handle combat in that way. Now, famously,
the old Marvel game from the 90s had just a straight number for your attack and a straight number for your defense, but that created a lot of problems because if, for example, Hulk and Wolverine started in a Hulk comic. That was his first appearance, and Hulk versus Wolverine in that game, Wolverine can't touch Hulk, and it's crazy. Like the whole combat, Wolverine will be swinging and nothing's happening, and that kind of system doesn't account for lucky hits or hitting a soft spot. Even if the person's wearing armor, there's always where the armor joins, where you can get a lucky strike or whatever with a knife, and that kind of system in the old Marvel game does not account for any of that.
And when Gio says the old Marvel game, because there are several Marvel games, so I just want to be clear so people know which one we're talking about. It's the one with face rip. So if you're familiar with the very, very old Marvel role-playing game that used like ratings like incredible, monstrous, amazing, and so each of those represented a stat amount. And so monstrous was 75, incredible was 40. So if you had an incredible attack, you're always dealing 40. But if you're attacking someone with monstrous defense of 75, the Hulk had monstrous defense. If you're attacking at 40 and they have a monstrous defense of 75, you're never going to break through because you're dealing 40, but they're absorbing up to 75, and there's no roll. So it would just be impossible to damage that character. So that's the one that Gio's talking about. So yeah, that is definitely. It had major issues. It was in concept, there were some really cool things with that system, but I agree, like specifically that issue where you just couldn't hurt. And it's not like you could do incredible damage and then someone in your group also did incredible, now you're doing 80. It didn't work that way. Like if you both are attacking at incredible, you're doing 40 each, and each instance was against the 75. So it made it really, really difficult to try and fight something that was above your pay grade, quote unquote. There was really no other way to defeat them. Now, it did create, there's a lot of people that love that game, and it did create, that whole concept of we're going to have to defeat this thing in a different way. So that was interesting.
Yeah, because, Spider-Man could web them up and then combat's over. Like, you don't have to kill the bad guy or even incapacitate them in a physical way, like getting them to 0 hit points to win. The point of combat in a comic book style game like that is that you catch the bad guy is basically and to stop them from doing the crime or whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah. So it was interesting, but I think it's definitely outdated. There's that massive problem, which it can be fun a couple of times to try and figure out how to defeat an enemy, but when it's every single time, because if you don't put an enemy with high defenses, they're getting stomped left and right.
That's exactly. It works the other way, right? So if your character hits at monstrous 75 and then the bad guys are all, a good 10, is like, man, you're just slaughtering everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not fun either.
Yeah. So some really big issues there with scaling, and things like that. But it was fun. There's another game. So this one famously got rid of the attack roll, Draw Steel. They weren't the first, but the way they marketed it, especially the fans of MCDM that don't know any better. They don't know any other games other than what Matt Colville tells them. And I'm not trying to be like to bash them, but that's just, I'm sorry, the facts, right? People who watch MCDM, that's all they know is whatever Matt Colville tells them. So when Matt Colville said, oh yeah, we're making Draw Steel and we're getting rid of the attack roll, everyone was like, oh my God, how are they going to do that? Even though it'd been done before, like Into the Odd and Marvel, like there's so many games that had already done it, but everyone was acting like it was the newest invention and how are they going to do it? This big mystery. No. And then the way they did it, maybe it works for their game. To be fair, I've never played Draw Steel. I don't think you've played Draw Steel before either. So, we can't judge it 100% because we haven't played it. But based on what I've read about the way that it works, it ain't my cup of tea. Maybe it works for them because their style of game is very heroic. Like everyone's just basically a superhero in fantasy setting, more so than in D&D 5th edition, like way more so. Maybe it works for them, right? But they completely got rid of the attack roll. Instead, they have what's called the power roll. So They got rid of the attack roll, but they also got rid of the damage roll. There's no such thing as doing damage by rolling damage. The power roll is your damage roll, quote unquote. But basically, how it works is you roll this power roll, and then that'll tell you, based on what the result of the roll is after your modifiers, you consult a table. And that table then tells you what you do. So I could roll, I mean, I'm making up numbers because I haven't played the game, but let's just say as a theory or as an example of how this theoretically works. If I roll D20 and I roll 15 on my power roll, and then I get a 4 modifier, so I'm at 19. Now I consult the table, and a 19 says I deal 3 damage to that goblin and they're knocked down. That's theoretically how it works.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting concept.
It is an interesting concept. However, having to refer back to a table during combat for every single roll for damage is very time consuming. It's going to slow down the action quite a bit, significantly. And I think it's unnecessary.
Yep. It's a big issue that I foresaw with it too. Now, a lot of people say that in practice, people get used to the table for their weapon because each one has different tables or something like that. So once you get used to how your character plays, you start to learn what the results equal. So it gets faster. But, at the same time, it's harder to know. Like if a bad guy is rolling on this power roll table or whatever, you don't know what theirs looks like or what they're supposed to do to you. Now, I know some of you are going to be typing away to clarify how this works. And in this case, I very highly appreciate it because, again, I don't own Draw Steel. I haven't even read through the book. So I've only seen pictures online of some of the pages or the layout and things like that. And I know based on a lot of videos that I watch how the concept works. So those of you who are typing in the comments to clarify exactly how it works, it's appreciated because you probably can explain it better than we can. But from my understanding, this is how everything works with Draw Steel, with their attack rolls. Now, the other issue I have is that with Draw Steel's method is that everything is kind of in the middle. So there's no like super, one of those moments where you're like, holy, like even 5e has, you crit and you did something like you smited and then you roll maximum on the smites or whatever. And it's like massive amounts of damage. Everyone's cheering at, oh yeah, hell yeah. You just cut the dragon's head off in one attack. So, even with all the problems that we have with 5e, that is something that happens at the table whenever there's a huge dynamic range for results. Whereas with this power roll, it tends to be more rare from my understanding of how that works. Almost everything falls within kind of a middle range of things. And the exciting parts are a lot more rare than even say 5e's critical damage rolling at 20. So again, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But what that does is it kind of sanitizes a lot of, the excitement for an attack against a creature. You're depending more on your tactics and things like that to do the cool things, quote unquote, and not depending so much on the randomness of the die roll, which for their game works, I'm assuming, because people love the game. But for a game like Left for the Vultures, that definitely would not work at all. The last thing we want is sanitized results from any kind of die roll. We want everything to be super uncertain. When a bad guy swings at you, we want it to be like, oh, I better have something I can do to defend against that because that could literally take me down if they roll
I mean,
well
it's
enough.
a game about vengeance, and vengeance should come with a cost.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on a vengeful rampage, it's not going to be a clean, easy, smooth freaking encounter.
Yeah. So what did we do with Left for the Vultures? Well, the way we did it was kind of what Into the Odd does. You just roll your damage. Every weapon has damage assigned to it that it does an X amount of dice that you roll for it. All dice explode for weapons, and for most weapons, the dice explode. Most spells, the dice explode. And so the way it works is everyone has a defense rating. You roll your damage, and if you roll maximum on a particular die roll, then you get to roll another dice of the same type and add on to the result. So you can keep rolling maximum and you just keep adding to that result. So a D6 damage weapon can do 1 point of damage, or if you roll 6, now you're rolling another die, you roll 6 again, you're rolling another die. So you could do infinite. I mean, in theory, right? So if you roll max a couple of times, that's already a range of 1 to like a range of 18 points of damage or something like that, which is pretty crazy and pretty variable. And then on top of that, you're adding damage modifiers. So you could be doing a massive amount of damage on a lucky roll. And so what this creates in Left for the Vultures is even a peasant can be super dangerous. Like if you're messing around with town guards in D&D famously, once you hit a certain level, you don't even care about town guards because you can take on the entire battalion of the town and not even break a sweat, not even take a point of damage. But in Left for the Vultures, everything is dangerous. Everything, especially if there's multiples of them, because the way flanking works is you add more dice and those explode as well. So getting flanked is super dangerous, just like it should be in real life.
Yeah, in
If
real
you're
life.
surrounded by 3 people with swords and you're by yourself, you're going to get cut up pretty bad. So that plays out in the game exactly
Caligula.
as intended. You have 3 people surrounding you, you're taking some serious damage unless you have some ways to mitigate a lot of that. And there are ways to do it. There are ways to mitigate stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool. It's very realistic, very grounded, and it like you said, it's it's like real life. I mean, you could be fighting. I mean, in D&D, a dog comes at you, it's like a joke. You know, any animal comes at you, a bear. Man, in real life, you're facing a bear, man. It is scary business, dude.
Yeah, you could be the world's greatest MMA fighter. And
Yeah, that's why you
you're
have that
confronted
whole
by a
thing
bear.
about, with women choosing to be alone on an island with a man or with a bear, and everybody's like, dude, really? You're picking the bear? But even a fight with a dog, man, like even a small dog, a Chihuahua, it's funny because in my neighborhood, we use the Nextdoor app, and my wife has banned me from using the Nextdoor app because I get into it with a lot of people. But there was a guy who's walking his dog, and it's like a little pug, and he's walking without a leash, and everybody's having a fit. Oh yeah, that dog's really gonna kill you. But they don't consider all the other things besides the dog getting run over, causing an accident, somebody trying to avoid the dog being in the middle of the street, children getting bit by the dog causing an infection, or man, the dog could bite you on the leg and hit an artery and you bleed out. A tiny dog like a pug can kill you if he hits right.
Yeah, if he hits right, exactly.
And
So
this game
so
reflects
that's
that.
the intent of Left for the Vultures. Now, you do have armor, and armor mitigates damage, just like Into the Odd. You have an armor rating that's going to deduct from the total rolled, but you also have an action called the guard action, where you can, if you have a shield, it'll give you a bonus, kind of like how Pathfinder, you can use an action to raise your shield. In this case, you can use an action to guard, which will raise your shield, giving you your shield bonus, and give you additional bonus to your defense based on your resilience and nimbleness and your armor. So if you're taking a defensive action, you can avoid hits because you're spending your action to watch out for those attacks, and it greatly boosts your defenses. So you can literally mitigate all damage against you by taking the defense action, but then you're not doing anything to attack. So there are special abilities that allow you to combine things and do some additional damage in addition to guarding, or maybe get a little bit of a defense bonus when you're attacking. There are ways to do it, but they are going to use up expendable resources. So you have to be very careful. In addition to that, we have the Vengeance Dice system, which is, we're going to talk about in a future video, but basically the way the Vengeance Dice work is everyone's got them. You spend them on anything. It's a D4 and it explodes as well. And you can use it to reduce incoming damage or deal extra damage when you attack. You can use it to gain extra movement, remove conditions. There's a lot of things that you can do with Vengeance Dice. And the defense portion of it is handy because if you're going to take a massive attack, then you at least have an additional way to mitigate some of the damage that's going to be incoming.
Yeah, and if it explodes on that defensive roll, then it's amazing. I mean, it's like a cinematic freaking move where the impossible happens, a James Bond move or a John Wick move where he completely avoids the most insane attack and then is able to come back and strike their opponent and win.
Yeah. A lot of the combat, I studied one of my favorite combats in a movie is the movie Troy, where Hector fights Achilles, and that it's that one-on-one combat between Hector and Achilles. Man, I love the choreography of that fight. The movie was super mediocre, but man, that scene is insanely good. It's one of my favorite scenes of any movie ever. And, when I was designing Left for the Vultures, I referred to that movie a lot because I wanted to be able to visualize that specific fight using my combat system. And Achilles goes into that fight with vengeance in his mind because his cousin got killed. And, I know in the lore, it's his friend. In certain lore, it's his friend. In certain lore, it's his cousin. In certain lore, it's his lover or whatever. But regardless of what he was, in that movie, he was his cousin who wore his armor, got killed by Hector. And now Achilles is there for vengeance. So you could see it in his mind. You could see it in his face. And he is just raging with vengeance. And a lot of the moves he's making, I could just envision him using Vengeance Dice to avoid getting hit or to do that additional damage against Hector. And I think it really plays out well when you envision a combat in Left for the Vultures and watch that fight scene, and you can totally see that happening in the game, I think.
Yeah, that's a great example. And we're big movie buffs, so we use a lot of movies as examples
Hmm.
especially for Left for the Vultures, because there's so many revenge movies that are so well done. So many of them are so well done. Some of the greatest movies are revenge stories.
Yeah.
So
Heck, I mean, even shows. You got Game of Thrones. The Mountain versus the Viper is another one of my favorite
man, that's a
combat scenes of
great
any show or
combat.
movie. And I put it side by side with that Hector versus Achilles. It's a duel, one on one, and one person has vengeance in their heart. This one plays out in a different way than the Hector versus Achilles one, but it's cool because again, you can see it. You can see the mechanics play into that combat. In fact, I might do an analysis video where I go over that particular combat and explain how in Left for the Vultures it would be playing out. But the person who's got vengeance on their mind, the Viper, eventually runs out of his vengeance dice. Let's just say that.
And the Mountain, it uses his.
Yeah. So,
In
so yeah,
an
that
awesome way. It's so good. So
super
good.
good. So if you've never seen that, watch that scene, The Mountain versus the Viper. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. If you haven't seen the movie Troy, the Hector versus Achilles fight, definitely watch that. It's so good, beginning to end. It's so tense, and then the music just adds more tension. And I love in tabletop role playing games when you have that tension constantly of not knowing what's going to happen next. Any blow in that fight, you know that any slip from either combatant could lead to their death because that's all it takes for one blow to do them in, right? And I think that in Left for the Vultures, doing this where the dice explode, if you're not careful, if you're going into combat and trying to do like the D&D, oh, the battle of attrition, you are in for a world of hurt because any moment, any mistake, or any maximum die roll from the enemy could be your undoing.
Yeah. There's been combats in 5e where, the fighter or whatever is sitting there and the bad guy attacks and the warrior our player's like, I'll take it. Now I'm gonna
Yeah,
do this. It's like that does not happen in this game.
yeah, yeah. Or they'll willfully take an attack of opportunity. We wanted to avoid all that kind of stuff. We don't have attacks of opportunity in the game because we want mobility to be a thing. And attacks of opportunity, in my experience, restrict mobility and create very boring combats where nobody wants to move once they're engaged in melee. So we did away with that. But in 5e, you do have moments where there'll be a fighter character or a barbarian where he's like gonna move away, but doesn't use a disengage action. Just like, I'll walk away. Well, I'm gonna get an attack of opportunity. Yeah, I'll take it because they know that bad guy is only going to do from 3 to 10 points of damage and they have 90 hit points. So they can absolutely take it and move and not have to deal with a penalty of wasting an action to disengage. But in real life, I think it takes away from the verisimilitude of that because in real life, who the heck is going to turn their back on an opponent with a sword and
And
go, I'm
willingly
just going
get
to walk
hit.
away from him? No, dude, you're going to try and be like defensive as you're trying to move away
Yeah.
from him. And that doesn't play out very well in 5e. The mechanics don't support that verisimilitude at all. So yeah, so the result in playtesting for Left for the Vultures is that this combat mechanic of getting rid of the attack roll and going straight to damage, it lets the rounds resolve very quickly. Combined with the initiative system, it creates a tactical element to every combat. But fights go fast, things go down, they take damage pretty badly, pretty quickly. Player characters, if they're not being smart, I mean, playing smart is a huge factor in the game because the difference between your character going down and your character not taking any damage is just being intelligent about how you manage your confrontations with enemies. And it promotes kind of a strategic element for handling your combats. You don't just want to go head on against a creature. You want to be smart, you want to hide, you want to light things on fire to create a distraction or cause conditions on the enemies so that they
Use
have a
items.
disadvantage. Use specific items to help boost or to help you in your combats. So it's extremely tactical.
Yeah, and
and
that's what I
and
love about it. There's a few games where, I like playing characters that are physically weak but have other abilities. And for example, like again, we talk about D&D so much, but it's the number one game, so I guess that's unavoidable. But when second edition playing a wizard in the lower levels, you run out of spells and you're stuck there with a dagger. If you're fighting a creature, that can't take damage, one dice four really does nothing to it. If there's or like in Marvel, the old Marvel game, the Phase Rip Marvel game, your character just sits there and does nothing. Sometimes like if you can't think of what to do next, or you're out
yeah,
of whatever abilities or moves or whatever, and you can't do anything, you're kind of just sitting there watching the stronger physical players do. all the action and you're just there as a spectator, as an NPC basically. Whereas with this game, even if you're the weakest character and you have the cheapest weapon and the opponent has a massive armor, full plate or whatever, you can go at them with a dagger and if the dice explodes, hey, it can happen and you can actually take that person down with
Yep,
a
you just nail
wimpy
him in the
weapon.
neck.
Yeah.
Find that chink in the armor, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that I hoped to evoke with the design of the game. It's definitely part of the intent, and in playtest, it definitely plays out that way. And I think that for those of you who are watching, give it a shot. Try out the system. I think that you'll really, really love the combat system tremendously. And we're going to be doing a live playtest. Well, we're going to record it live and then we're going to just play it on YouTube with the character that you made. We just did a character generation video that you guys should be seeing by the time this comes out. That character that you built, we're going to run him through a one shot and see how he does. This is not pre-planned. It's going to happen. What's going to happen is going to happen.
I'm excited to play this character that I created. Yeah, the weapon he uses, which is a hook, has a flat amount of damage, but he has other ways to boost that damage, which are very interesting. And that's going to be really cool. And it's also going to be cool to see how he mitigates the exploding dice that come at him from his opponents. So this is going to be really cool. I love tactical games, being able to move around the board and not just sit there and, like you said, trading blows is just so boring to me. But being able to really move around the entire board and do different things to make the combat very interesting, I think is going to be awesome. This playtest.
Yeah. Can't wait to run it and see what happens because again, neither one of us knows what the result's going to be. We'll let the dice decide for this adventure. This one-shot adventure could end very quickly, or it could go really, really, really well for you. Who knows? But that's coming out next week, so can't wait to show that to you guys. Anyways, if you guys are interested in this type of design intent, definitely check out the Left for the Vultures Kickstarter. It's launching August 11th. The game is already written. We've play tested it. It's been written now. We've been kind of play testing for the last 3 years. So this is something that has been going on for a very long time. A lot of the mechanics were refined through time. There were some things that we tried that didn't work as well. We removed, we changed, and through play tests, iterated new versions that just made the game better and better. And I think what we have finally come up with is a game that we both love to play. And our gaming group says it's their favorite game that they love to play as well. And we've played dozens. And when I say dozens, I mean like over 30 different role-playing games in the last few years.
And this is not just them, greasing us up, man. These people will tell us if they don't like something. We are honest with each other, like flat out.
Yeah.
So, and this is why over the course of 3 years, when you first came up with the concept, we've refined this and it's complete. It's fully written. Art is done. It's laid out. It's ready to print. If you back the Kickstarter, you don't need to worry about having to wait 2-3 years or anything like that. The digital version will be immediately sent to you as soon as the Kickstarter campaign ends. So it's ready to go. Plus, one of the big things that, man, a gripe I have with a lot of new games, there's no adventures, no content out there for you to actually base your own adventures off of as an example, or to just play a one shot. We are going to have dozens of adventures ready to go as soon as this is released.
Yep. Just to give a little sneak peek to those watching, I'm going to be sharing. So this is the InDesign. So this is the layout program that I use to modify and lay out the game. So this is the Binding Fates chapter. It's like a how to run the game chapter.
But yeah, big note. It is in dark mode, so it is easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So you can see here in dark mode, we've got all the art already completed. We have, the different chapters, different pop outs and things like that. So yeah, the game is completely finished. And basically when the Kickstarter launches, we are going to be releasing the PDFs immediately. It takes 2 weeks to get the money from Kickstarter. So we're waiting till all that processes. So 2 weeks after the end of the campaign, all the digital files are going out right away. So all the adventures, the main core book and the world guide, all are going out 2 weeks after the Kickstarter campaign ends. And then the book goes to print. It takes some time because they have to send us proofs. We need to go over the proofs, make sure everything looks right, make modifications, send them again. And then once everything's done, then they print the books in China, which takes a long time for the freight to come by. back to the US. So the physical prints do take a few months, but it's ready to go to print. Basically, why we're doing a Kickstarter is to raise funds to be able to afford to buy extra copies to then take to conventions and sell print copies of the book, especially this special edition book, which I think is going to look really,
It's
really
gonna
cool on
look
people's
awesome.
shelves.
It's
Yeah.
gonna look so cool. I can't wait to have it in my hands. And again, it's just a matter of waiting for the Kickstarter to end. Again, this is happening no matter what. So
No matter what.
because it's
Yep.
done, it's done. It's written. It's all set up.
Cool, guys. Well, we'd love to hear what you guys think about any other games that maybe we didn't mention that have gotten rid of the attack roll or maybe handle attack and damage in a different way than what you're used to with traditional tabletop role playing games, specifically in the fantasy genre. So definitely put that in the comments. We'd love to read about it and discuss it with you guys. As always, my name is Vase. I run the Left for the Vultures YouTube channel.
And I'm Gio. I run the Headless Hammerhead YouTube channel.
Thank you guys very much, and we'll see you all next week.
Take care.